Domestically now, we've seen lawmakers late today vote to subpoena the Attorney General for the way her department has handled the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. You saw a handful of Republicans, right, so people in the president's own party, joining Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to vote to bring Pam Bondi in, including Nancy Mace, the congresswoman on the Republican side. Watch this.
Hi, everyone. Luke and Rook here. There are moments in a political career when the walls start closing in, and then there are moments when the ceiling collapses entirely. For Pam Bondi, that moment is right now.
I have a lot more questions, and I don't expect to be talking about the stock market, so she better not bring those notes when she comes to the Oversight Committee.
That's a reference to the previous questioning that Bondi went through just some weeks ago in front of a different House committee on this very thing, where you see here survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse stood. They were in the audience. They were wearing shirts that talked about releasing the files. Let me bring in Ryan Nobles, who's live for us on Capitol Hill. So this is interesting. This is a real sort of shot across the bow to the White House, the Department of Justice, that they're subpoenaing now Pam Bondi. Ryan.
Yeah, and it's really born out of a sense of frustration from the members of Congress who are specifically interested.
Yeah, and it's really born out of a sense of frustration from the members of Congress who are specifically interested. This is the instant when the Attorney General of the United States realizes that her loyalty to Donald Trump has become a felony waiting to happen. This is the instant when judges stop warning and start threatening. This is the instant when Congress stops asking questions and starts building a case. This is the instant when her political allies, the ones who swore they'd stand with her, start quietly slipping out the back door.
Some lawmakers are accusing Attorney General Pam Bondi of spying on their search history within the unredacted Epstein files. This comes after Bondi was seen at a congressional committee hearing earlier this week, holding what appeared to be a list of files searched by Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. CBS News Justice correspondent Scott McFarland joins us now live. Scott, what do we know about this?
And most terrifying of all, this is the instant when Pam Bondi understands that the man she destroyed her career for, the man she weaponized the Justice Department for, the man she hid evidence for, is already preparing to throw her directly under the bus to save himself. She is facing arrest. She is facing prosecution. She is facing prison. We know that the week began with the Epstein files being an absolute hot mess.
We know that the week began with the Epstein files being an absolute hot mess, and the week is ending with the Epstein files being an absolute hot mess. In this incarnation of the scandal, members of Congress who've been invited to view the unredacted, unreleased files at the Department of Justice say they're being tracked. They're being monitored, and their searches inside those files are being chronicled and cataloged by the Trump administration. They don't like that. That is a overstepping, they say, an encroachment on their powers, on their autonomy, and they want the administration to stop.
And she is facing it completely alone. And she is facing it completely alone. Let's start with the obvious question that Pam Bondi is asking herself right now in whatever private room she's hiding in. How did I get here? Because the list of accusations against her reads like a federal prosecutor's dream indictment. Bondi is accused of obstructing justice. Bondi is accused of hiding the Epstein files to protect Donald Trump. Bondi is accused of transforming the Department of Justice into a political weapon designed to prosecute Trump's enemies while shielding his allies. Bondi is accused of using the full power of the federal government to go after people like James Comey and Letitia James, not because they committed crimes, but because they dared to hold Trump accountable. And now the judges are done watching. The judges are done warning. The judges are now threatening Bondi directly. The first shoe to drop is the Epstein files. Congress passed a law. The law requires transparency. The law demands that the Epstein files be released to the public so that victims can finally see justice, and so that the American people can finally know the truth about who was involved. But Bondi is not complying with the law. Bondi is redacting critical information. Bondi is delaying release after release. Bondi is hiding documents that specifically mention Donald Trump. And Congress is not stupid. They see exactly what she's doing. They see the pattern, they see the obstruction, and they are furious. Bondi was summoned before Congress to explain herself. She walked into that hearing room with the confidence of someone who thought she had the power to control the narrative. And then she refused to answer 15 separate questions. 15 times she sat there and declined to explain why the DOJ is hiding Epstein files. 15 times she refused to say whether the DOJ owes anything to Epstein's victims. 15 times she stonewalled the elected representatives of the American people. And in doing so, she may have committed perjury. She may have obstructed a congressional investigation. She may have added multiple felony counts to her growing legal tab. Congress is now actively considering holding her in contempt. Contempt of Congress is not a parking ticket. It is a criminal charge that can lead to arrest and prosecution. But the congressional threat is only one front in the war closing in on Bondi. The federal judiciary is also moving against her. Judges across the system have been watching as Bondi uses the Justice Department to settle political scores. They've watched her go after Trump's enemies with the full weight of federal prosecutorial power. They've watched her protect Trump's allies from scrutiny. And they have concluded that what Bondi is doing violates the most fundamental principles of the rule of law. Judges are now threatening to hold Bondi in contempt of court. Judges are threatening to refer Bondi for criminal prosecution. Judges are making clear that if she continues to abuse her power, if she continues to obstruct justice, if she continues to hide documents, there will be consequences. And those consequences include arrest. Now, here's where Bondi's nightmare becomes truly existential. She always assumed that if she did Trump's bidding, if she took the arrows for him, if she became the attack dog he demanded, that he would protect her. That was the deal. Loyalty in exchange for protection. But Trump has been complaining about Bondi behind her back. Trump has been telling aides that Bondi is weak. Trump has been saying Bondi isn't aggressive enough. Trump has been criticizing her to anyone who will listen. And that means Trump is already laying the groundwork to abandon her. He's already preparing to claim he didn't know what she was doing. He's already preparing to say she acted on her own. He's already preparing to throw her under the bus to protect himself. And Bondi knows this. She understands that she is expendable. She understands that Trump will sacrifice anyone to survive. She understands that when the arrest warrant comes, Trump will not lift a finger to stop it. Think about what that realization does to a person. Bondi became Attorney General thinking she had reached the pinnacle of power. She thought she was going to be the one wielding the gavel, not the one facing it. She thought she was going to be the prosecutor, not the defendant. She thought she was going to be protected by the most powerful man in American politics. And now, she's sitting alone, watching judges threaten her, watching Congress attack her, watching her allies flee, and watching Trump distance himself with every passing day. What Pam Bondi is finally beginning to grasp, far too late, is this. The danger surrounding her isn't external. It's structural. It's internal. It's engineered. Because Bondi didn't just operate within the Department of Justice. She bent it. She rewired it. She converted an institution built on law into a mechanism driven by loyalty, rewarding allies, punishing enemies, and embedding that logic into the system itself. And systems remember. Every delayed Epstein document is logged. Every redaction leaves a trace. Every order, every directive, every quiet instruction passed behind closed doors, it didn't disappear. It was recorded, archived, preserved. What once gave her control is now building the case against her. And then there are the witnesses, not outsiders, not political opponents, insiders, career officials, analysts, staff who executed orders they knew crossed a line. They watched, they documented, and now they're talking. Testimony is forming, patterns are aligning, fragments are becoming prosecutable narratives. This is the part Bondi cannot outrun. The more power she concentrated, the more evidence she generated. The machine she constructed to protect one man is now calibrating itself to expose her. This is no longer rumor, no longer politics, no longer deniable. This is record. This is structure. This is evidence with memory. And that leaves only one question, one that no longer belongs to Bondi, but to the people preparing the case. How many charges can they bring, and how many do they actually need to win? She thought she was going to be protected by the most powerful man in American politics. And now she's sitting alone watching judges threaten her, watching Congress attack her, watching her allies flee, and watching Trump distance himself with every passing day. The phone isn't ringing. The cavalry isn't coming. She is isolated, vulnerable, and facing potential felony charges that carry decades in prison. Let's break down exactly what Bondi is looking at in terms of legal jeopardy. First, obstruction of justice. By hiding the Epstein files, by delaying their release, by redacting information that points straight to Donald Trump, Bondi has potentially violated federal obstruction statutes. These are serious felonies that prosecutors love to charge because they're relatively easy to prove when you have a paper trail, and Bondi has left one. Second, perjury. If Bondi lied to Congress during that hearing, if any part of her testimony was false, if she misled them even slightly, that's another felony, clean and clear on the record. Third, abuse of power. Using the Justice Department to prosecute political opponents violates multiple federal laws and every ethical rule in the book. Going after James Comey, Letitia James, and others not for crimes they committed, but because they dared to investigate or prosecute Trump, that is the textbook definition of weaponizing federal authority. Fourth, conspiracy. If Bondi coordinated with Trump or others to hide evidence, to slow-walk releases, to target enemies while shielding allies, then conspiracy charges can attach to everything else. And once you start stacking felonies like that, the sentence gets longer, the plea deals vanish, and the prison door swings wider. And here's the thing about federal prosecutors. They don't have to prove every single count. They just have to prove enough to get a conviction. And Bondi has given them so much material to work with. Every hidden document is evidence. Every refused answer in that hearing is evidence. Every political prosecution she greenlit is evidence. Every email, every phone call, every meeting where loyalty trumped law is evidence. The moment Democrats take control of the Justice Department, the moment Trump loses the protective shield of the presidency, all of that evidence becomes the foundation of a criminal case against Pam Bondi. That's why Bondi is panicking right now. She understands that her fate is tied directly to the 2026 election. She understands that if Republicans lose, if Democrats take back Congress and the levers of the Justice Department, she is finished. She will be arrested. She will be prosecuted. She will be convicted. She will go to prison. And Trump will not save her. Trump will be too busy trying to save himself. In fact, Trump might even encourage her prosecution as a way to distract from his own legal troubles. Throw Bondi to the wolves, let the media focus on her trial, and maybe, just maybe, he can slip out of the spotlight long enough to survive. That's why Bondi is panicking right now. She understands that her fate is tied to the 2026 election. She understands that if Republicans lose, if Democrats take control of Congress and the Justice Department, she is finished. She will be arrested. She will be prosecuted. She will be convicted. She will go to prison. And Trump will not save her. Trump will be too busy trying to save himself. In fact, Trump might even encourage her prosecution as a way to distract from his own legal troubles. Throw Bondi to the wolves, let the media focus on her trial, and maybe, just maybe, he can slip out of the spotlight long enough to survive. The whistleblowers are already coming forward. Current and former DOJ employees are talking to investigators. They're describing the pressure Bondi applied to go after Trump's enemies. They're describing the orders to slow-walk the Epstein file releases. They're describing the atmosphere of political loyalty overriding legal duty. And every one of those whistleblowers is another nail in Bondi's coffin. Every testimony is another piece of evidence. Every document they provide is another page in the indictment. Meanwhile, the judges are not waiting for the election. They are moving now. They are issuing orders. They are holding hearings. They are making clear that Bondi is in their crosshairs. Contempt of court is not theoretical. It is a real power that judges have, and they are prepared to use it. If Bondi continues to defy court orders, if she continues to hide documents, if she continues to obstruct, a judge could order her arrested immediately, not after the election, not after some lengthy legal process. Now, today, tomorrow, the handcuffs could come out at any moment. And Bondi knows this. She knows that every day she remains in office, every day she continues to do Trump's bidding, every day she continues to hide evidence, she moves one step closer to those handcuffs. But she can't stop. If she stops, Trump will attack her. If she stops, she admits wrongdoing. If she stops, the whole house of cards collapses anyway. She is trapped in a nightmare of her own making with no escape route, no allies, and no hope. This is what happens when you put loyalty to a man above loyalty to the Constitution. This is what happens when you use the Justice Department as a political weapon. This is what happens when you think the rules don't apply to you because you're on the right team. The rules always apply. The law always catches up. And right now, the law is catching up to Pam Bondi at full speed. For voters watching this unfold, the message could not be clearer. The 2026 election is not just about which party controls Congress. It is about accountability. It is about whether the people who abused power face consequences. It is about whether Bondi and others like her go to prison or walk free. If Democrats win, the Justice Department will investigate, prosecutors will indict, juries will convict. Bondi will be arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned. If Republicans hold power, Bondi might escape. She might never face a jury. She might walk away with nothing more than a tarnished reputation. That is the choice facing American voters. That is what hangs in the balance. Bondi's freedom, Bondi's future, Bondi's fate. And she knows it. She knows that her worst nightmare is entirely in the hands of voters who are watching her every move. Voters who are seeing the evidence pile up. Voters who are realizing that the only thing standing between Bondi and prison is the outcome of an election. So Bondi sits in her office alone, staring at the walls, wondering when the other shoe will drop, wondering which judge will sign the warrant, wondering which prosecutor will file the charges, wondering which agent will show up at her door, wondering if Trump will even take her call when she reaches out for help. And she already knows the answer. He won't. He'll let her rot. He'll let her take the fall. He'll let her go to prison, while he tries to figure out how to save himself. That is Bondi's worst nightmare. Not the judges, not Congress, not even the potential prison time. It's the realization that she's sacrificed everything for a man who is never going to sacrifice anything for her. It's the understanding that she made herself a target for a man who will now use her as a shield. It's the horror of knowing that she is completely, utterly, and permanently alone. And as the 2026 election approaches, that nightmare is only going to get worse. Every day brings new revelations. Every day brings new threats. Every day brings Bondi closer to the moment when her political career ends and her legal nightmare begins. The judges are ready. Congress is ready. The prosecutors are waiting. And Trump is already gone. The only question left is whether voters will finish the job, whether they will show up in 2026 and demand accountability, whether they will vote to ensure that Bondi and every other Trump loyalist who abused their power faces the full weight of the justice system. Because if they don't, if Republicans hold on, Bondi might escape. But if they do, if Democrats take control, Bondi's worst nightmare becomes America's moment of justice. The handcuffs are coming. The indictment is coming. The prison sentence is coming. The only variable is when. And that when is determined by the voters. That when is determined by the election. That when is determined by whether the American people decide that no one is above the law, not even the Attorney General of the United States. Pam Bondi is about to learn the hardest lesson in American politics. Loyalty to Trump is not protection. It is a liability. It is a target. It is a one-way ticket to federal prison. And she is about to take that ride alone.